Greetings, everyone. Thanks once again for coming out to another Brony Debates Live. I hope you're all having a great night. I'm having a great night, and we've got a good team here. And we've got a pretty interesting topic tonight. Now, I know the title says The Effects of Spoilers featuring Skan120, Shutter Speed, and DJ Skywalker, but there's a little bit more to it than that. Then I'm going to have us explain in just a little bit. But before we do that, I should thank all of my patrons for making these streams possible, especially those guys at the $10 and up tier. These guys, as usual, are Autoknight, Sodden, Senko, Jennan, Kellogg, Kyle Christensen, DJ Skywalker, who's joining us yet again, and the Equestrian City Heroverse series of fan fictions. Be sure to check all their links out in the description. Very good read. A lot of these folks make some very good content as well. If you want to be on these streams, I'd love to have you. We just need you to join the Patreon Discord server for as little as $1 a month, and from there you can suggest topics or games to play on Friday Night Fights, but that is all beside the point here. So, joining me tonight, we got the roboticist and genius who was behind a lot of the advanced special effects on A Buck to the Face for To Wear and Back Again. Shutter Speed, how are you doing tonight?
I'm actually doing pretty well, thank you.
Good. And standing next to him, we've got DJ Skywalker returning to the Ring of Honor. How are you doing tonight, DJ?
I don't know how I keep getting on these podcasts, but I think you just like pain.
Yeah, If my main series wasn't very apparent of that, then yes, I'll just confirm it here. I am a little bit of a masochist. And standing next to him is a giant purple griffin, Skan120, one of my oldest friends of the Brony fandom. How are you doing tonight, sir?
Doing well.
Very good. Alrighty then. So, this topic was Shutter Speed's suggestion. I can't remember if I've said that already or not yet. But there's a little bit more to it than what's written in the title. Shutter Speed, you want to tell us what's going on tonight?
Absolutely. The more elaborate topic is the effects that a person's expectations going into something can have on their enjoyment of it. So, like, for instance, you go into a movie, you've seen the trailers, you're expecting something like this. How do those expectations determine your enjoyment of things? I myself have personally had good expectations. I've had negative expectations. I've had my expectations subverted. And I kind of just want to talk about that.
All right, that sounds good. So let's get this out of the way. Do we want to focus on just the effects that our expectations have on our perception of media, or do you think these concepts can apply to life in general or beyond that?
Oh, absolutely. I definitely think they could apply to a bunch of different things.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty then. So why don't you tell me your opinions on it? What do you... how do your expectations affect your perception of whatever it may be going into it?
Well, it really depends on when I go in to actually see the media or when I actually ingest the media itself. For instance, are you guys here familiar with the anime of Gate?
No.
Anyone hear about that? Okay, well...
No.
Unless
when it
that's
came
abbreviated for Steins Gate.
No. I actually haven't watched that yet. But to put it simply, it was an anime that mainly people only talked about it as being like Japanese military propaganda, and a lot of people panned it as being very one note, very uninspired, very bland and stuff like that, and it really wasn't well received by a lot of people. I, on the other hand, actually loved it, because when I heard the description for it, I'm like, yes, I want a military power fantasy, and that is exactly what I got. So because I expected something positive out of it, and I got what I was expecting, I enjoyed it, while a lot of people ended up not liking it.
Penny the Pencil Pony in the chat is asking, Regate, is that the name of the anime?
Gaitai. It's something like that. It's and then the Japanese fought there, or then the JSDF fought there.
Interesting. Okay, so yeah, I'm not familiar with that. So tell us what like give us a summary or a blurb of this anime real quick.
Okay, it's sort of like isekai, but with a doorway, where all of a sudden a magical gate appears. There you go. Appears in the Ginza district of Japan, and or Tokyo. I forget the city. And suddenly, an aggressive army from that looks like it came right out of the Roman era pops out and then starts slaughtering people. The JSDF responds, knocks them back, and then they're like, okay, let's see what's on the other side of this thing. And they go over there, and it was basically modern-day weapons, armor, politics, facing off against medieval versions of those things, and it was a very one-sided fight, but it was fun to watch.
I was about to say, that sounds horrendously one-sided.
Oh, it was.
It was like an episode of Stargate SG-1.
I've not seen Stargate SG-1 either, so I have no...
Oh, it's so good. You have to see it.
All right. I'll take that as a glowing recommendation. So, all right. So do you think having these sort of expectations going into something, Shutter Speed, do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing for most people?
I think your expectations are a good thing. Like, everyone has their opinion.
Mm-hmm. Nothing further to elaborate on there?
not on that point, to be perfectly honest. I don't really think you can describe them as good or bad. I kind of always sort of seen them as just like it's up to the person to determine. I don't know.
Okay, so DJ, do you have any examples for us, or what do you think about all this?
Okay, personally, I don't think it's either good or bad. It's just kind of nature, really. Because expectations can lead to many different things. They can either match your expectations, equal your expectations, or blow them out of the water.
Mm-hmm.
I guess an example for me would be Captain Marvel.
Yeah, tell us about it.
The Marvel movie. I followed a lot of the controversies leading up to that movie, and I only went to see it because it was connected to the Endgame movie that was going to end the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Well, end in quotations.
Well, it's going to end the Marvel Cinematic Universe and transition into the Disney Plus Marvel Cinematic, whatever it is.
Yeah. But going in, I did not have very good expectations of it.
Mm-hmm.
And after seeing the movie, I'll admit it's actually a little bit better than I was going into it, but I'm not going to give it any kind of glowing review because for a Marvel movie, it was still one of the worst ones.
Okay.
It was boring, but boring is better than god-awful. So...
Yeah, I suppose so. Do you think your expectations for it helped play into the way you digested that media, or did it?
Definitely.
All right. Do you think you would have enjoyed it as much, less, or more if you had gone into that movie knowing nothing about it?
If I went into it knowing nothing about it, I think it would have been bored out of my mind.
Okay, so in this case...
it would have been a lot lower on my scale.
Okay, so in this case, it was a pleasant surprise for you. Is that about right?
I wouldn't necessarily use that word. That word's a little strong.
All right.
But there's been other cases where I was glad to be proven wrong as well.
Mm-hmm.
I had the example in my head, but I just forgot it. What one was that? I think it was Detective Pikachu, honestly.
Really? How so?
Well, with how bad of a reputation video game movies have, to go into a live-action Pokemon movie and thoroughly enjoy the hell out of it, it was nice having a lower bar than the movie was going for, and I enjoyed it. I had a low bar going into it, and afterwards I find it be one of the best Pokemon movies out there.
Interesting. And Skan, what do you think?
I think it goes back and forth. The way you perceive things will paint stuff. I think low expectations usually get the result of you can usually tolerate something a little better unless it truly lives up to its horrible name.
Mm-hmm.
But if you overestimate, expect too much from a thing, you'll usually get the disappointment, with very few exceptions, living up to what you were hoping to come from it.
Okay, so do you have any examples for yourself of, expectations playing a part in how you perceive something one way or the other?
Well, there's two hero movies that were really like that. The first one being Guardians of the Galaxy. They had the previews out, and my friends and I would laugh at the friggin' talking raccoon blazing the gun, and we're like, oh, this is gonna be the first flop from Marvel probably. And then you go and see the movie, and that's actually pretty much the highlight of the movie for me. Just how they made Rocket and everything.
Yeah, it's a pretty good interpretation of Rocket as far as I can tell. I'm not the most knowledgeable on the comic books, however. But yeah,
I didn't know the comic books either. It was just he was a fantastic character to watch and stuff.
Mm-hmm. So you went from thinking that was going to be ridiculous and this wasn't going to be a good Marvel movie to dressing up as one of the characters from at all your furry conventions.
Yeah. And the other more recent one was after their Spider-Man movies and everything. I was going into Venom expecting complete shit, but it was like, wow, this is this I enjoyed as much as the original Spider-Man movies with Tobey Maguire, the second one.
Now that's surprising to me because I went into that expecting it to be really bad, and it was, as far as I could tell, it was really bad. Granted, goodness, what's the gentleman's name who played Eddie Brock? His portrayal of that character,
Hardy?
Yeah, Tom Hardy. Tom Hardy did a really good job, but he was just hampered by a really bad script, as what tends to be with anything produced by Sony. At least that's what I thought of it. Usually I can tell if I'm going to like something or not by looking at it. And sometimes I'm right. In fact, I'd say about 95% of the time I'm right. And that used to be like 99% of the time I was right. But then I became a brony in 2010. And that certainly wasn't something I expected to enjoy. Additionally, since I met Heather, she's put me onto like 6 or 7 shows that I looked at and thought, oh, this is going to be terrible, and now they ended up being some of my favorites, some of them begrudgingly. Like, I've got this thing going on where I'll know something is bad, but I'll still enjoy it for some reason. But I don't think, in terms of me personally, my expectations of things really have an effect on whether or not I'll enjoy it. I tend to be a little bit more objective in my opinions of things. And I don't believe myself to be closed-minded, which I think that'll be my next question to you guys is what's the practicality of having expectations going into it, and should you work to change that or be open-minded, or should you keep your guard up? What do you think, Shutterspeed?
I think that expectations are just a genetic evolution of our ancestors having been like, okay, I'm gonna go hunt. This typically tends to happen, so I need to prepare myself for this, and then I'll expect this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically just like you can use. Hold on, I lost my train of thought for a second. expectations are basically just a person's way of preparing themselves for something. And there is something to be said about keeping an open mind about things, because just being constantly skeptic of everything can kind of kill the joy. But then there is also the difference of having an opinion or making an assumption about something like, oh, from what I've seen, it's probably going to be like this. And you could be proven right, you could be proven wrong. But yeah, I guess it would depend on like how open you are to being proven wrong if you're expecting it to be bad, or how open you are to being proven right if you were expecting a good result, or vice versa.
So where's the practicality in that? Either way, like what can you avoid or miss if you adhere to this too much?
Well, it depends. Are we doing this it depends if you're looking at it just from a standpoint of personal enjoyment, or if you're using your expectations to sort of draw like some bigger narrative from it. If it's just enjoyment, then I think the practicality is just, are you having fun? If you're trying to draw a deeper meaning, then expectations could cloud you. I think they could cloud your judgment, and objectiveness kind of would be pushed a bit to the side.
Alrighty then, and so that, yeah, there's that. DJ, what do you think about all this?
Trying to think. Could you repeat it one more time just so I'm making sure I'm understanding this properly?
Okay, so yeah, if is it a good idea to keep an open mind of these things? How much should you let your expectations color your judgment of something? And if so, or should you, what was I saying? Or should you keep off of it? Should you avoid things that you don't think are going to be good? And if so, what's the practicality of either of those outcomes?
Okay. Well, I've always been told it's not a bad thing to have an open mind, but it can be a bad thing to have too open of a mind, because then you start to lose who you are. So there's kind of my answer, kind of the philosophical answer on that part.
Do you think you'd be able to identify the line of where those two concepts meet?
I suppose when you've stopped deciding and just accepting. Let's go with movies, for example. If you were to have a perfect open mind, you would go and see every movie that ever comes out. Practically, that is a stupid idea. Especially with how much movies cost. That alone is the dumbest idea.
That's a fair point. I could agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
But on a normal level, that's actually kind of the issue I have with critics, is that critics do see every movie, because that's their job. But seeing every movie creates different thoughts in your head. It creates a I kind of want to say a stricter sense of what it is you enjoy out of film. Because if you notice how this is going to go into a different kind of thing here for just a moment. Critics and audiences see different things in movies. Critics will see the art of film, because they've seen so many movies that they're almost all the same at this point. So they're looking at how the movie's shot, the acting, the directing. Most audiences want a popcorn flick. They're not going in there for the art films that you get at the Oscars. They're not going to the indie movies unless their friends drag them there who went to theater school for 5 seconds. And so I think it's, going back to the original question, it's good to go and see stuff that you're curious about. Just strictly going with movies and television. If you're curious about something, that's not a bad thing to go see it. But don't feel like you need to see everything. Like, for me, I love animation. I love cartoons. I love anime. But I'm never going to see every anime or every cartoon. The one cartoon I always hear the cartoon YouTubers that I follow always talk about is BoJack Horseman. I will never watch that show because it looks ugly as all heck.
I promise you're not missing very much. I've seen a few episodes of it myself, and I can't stand a single character in that show.
I don't think you got far enough.
But
I don't
just
think
the
I watched
art style
anything in
alone is enough
sequence.
to turn me off of things, and that's my own subjectivity that keeps me. I will still see some things that don't look necessarily appealing, like Transformers Prime. I wasn't a big fan of the CG, but I grew to love the show.
Mm-hmm.
But with something like with BoJack Horseman, the animation and the character's design is just so off-putting that I'm not willing to give it a chance because I don't want to watch that. It's kind of why I also gave up Rick and Morty. It just was so ugly to my eyes that even when the stories could be good, I wasn't enjoying sitting through them.
And that's a huge aspect of it. So does anybody have anything to say to what DJ said, or should we let Skan say his piece?
That kind of sounds like the open mind thing and how open you can be to it. I'm kind of surprised by especially you bringing up TV things, because TV shows are actually designed so that they're more, dialogue centric than movies are, because they want to get, they used to be, they were trying to get the parents at home who were just doing chores and stuff could turn it on in the background and not even have to watch to follow what's going on and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So you actually don't really need to pay attention to the disgusting how it looks most of the time to follow the story and know what's going on and catch the jokes and stuff like that.
Well, that's understandable if you're playing a story for somebody to listen to, but that's also what we had the radio, soap operas for. I think if you're going to have a visual medium, it should be good enough to be watched visually, I guess, would be the right way to say that.
When it's visual, it needs to be good to look at.
Yeah. Thank you, DJ.
Yeah, but I'm saying that because people have different visual things. I actually love the designs and stuff in those two shows. It's not clean and everything, but it's got an interesting design and is appealing to me.
Well, that's kind of what I'm getting at, is that the subjectivity of it will also determine your thoughts.
Mm.
Because to me, subjectively, it's ugly. To you, subjectively, you like it.
Yeah.
I mean, neither of us are wrong.
Yeah,
I mean, personally, we could be wrong to each other, but objectively, it's not wrong.
Right. It's something that one of you can handle and the other one cannot. So let's talk about spoilers properly for a bit here, because especially for us bronies, spoilers have been a huge problem since season 3 of Friendship is Magic. I'm looking at the chat here, and I got a number of people bringing up Steven Universe. I don't know if there's any Steven Universe fans in this chat. I know Skan watched it for a while, and I watched it for a while.
I've seen bits and pieces.
Yeah.
I finished it. It gets kind of crappy near the end, but it still has some stuff. They put out that movie, but the movie was pretty junk to me, except for it had 2 great songs and one character who, for a short period, is very entertaining.
Okay, so we deal with a lot of spoilers, and we get whole marketing strategies based on spoilers and trailers that are meant to set up a certain tone for a movie. How does that play into the way we perceive these movies or these TV shows? Like, for example, those of us who knew that Twilight was going to become an alicorn at the beginning of season 3. Did that? Yeah, oh yeah. They merchandise had started coming out, and there was some guy that was actually working at was it DHX or was it still Studio B at the time? Can't remember, but he was working for them, And he came out with this big long list of things that was like, okay, got some good news and bad news for all you bronies out there. Here's what's going to happen in season 3. And pretty much everything he said came to pass. One of them was we're expressly forbidden from showing Derpy anymore, and at the end of the season, Twilight's going to become an alicorn.
Yeah, there was images of Twilight out before the episode came out. It kind of came about one of the best YouTube videos I've ever seen. They took a Game Grump sound bite from when they're playing Sonic 6 and Knuckles gets stuck in the ceiling or something, and they have a whole breakdown. And instead they have it scenes from the cartoon Rainbow Dash and Pinkie Pie going, what is this? And you got floating around her image of
Twilight
Princess
in that
Twilight.
Yeah, Twilight in her coronation dress. Anyway, so when it comes to spoiler territories, how do spoilers affect our perception of things? Shutter Speed, what do you think about that?
Where I absolutely hate spoilers is in the trailers for movies. Like, it's gotten to the point with me now where I can the Black Christmas movie, for example, the most recent thing that came out over the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
The trailers in the scenes that you see in that movie told me exactly how the story was going to go from point A to point B. There was a group of girls living in a dormitory.
Mm-hmm.
Some guy starts killing them. And then when you saw those images of the guys in the robes lined up next to each other doing this weird ritual looking thing, and then we saw it was the guys' faces, I was like, oh, okay, so they're the ones who are behind this whole thing. It's some ritualistic, supernatural thing. And then we see the scene where the girls are like, you messed with the wrong sisters, and then they get into a fight, and then the girls slam the door shut, and you can see the robed figures behind with the growing inferno behind them. I was like, oh, okay, so they lock them in and they all burn to death. The movie comes out. That's exactly what happens.
Yeah, it's like getting really bad with that.
I know.
I think the person who made Terminator Genesis was trying to find a way to sue the trailer companies.
Yeah,
because he was outraged when they put in his trailer that John Connor was a Terminator. It's in the trailer.
Oh, jeez.
Your movie is already ruined by your own marketing. It's like, congratulations, you played yourself.
And I've heard people say
that's when I found out the directors have no control over the trailers.
Yeah.
It's a completely different department, and the studio just goes, we're taking these images and giving them over to trailer people. They asked for them.
Mm-hmm. And that can certainly work for you and against you sometimes, but then you've got cases like the anime Madoka Magica. Are we all familiar with what happens here?
No, that's kind of funny that we're talking spoilers and you brought that up. How I got into that anime is somebody in a chat or something said, hey, everybody, check this out, and linked a scene from like the 3rd or 4th episode where a key character, something happens to them. And so I saw this scene then. So going into that series, it was already spoiled, and I'm going, okay, so when does this happen? When does this happen? Oh, there's the person. So when's this going to happen? When's this going to happen? No surprise at all.
Now, you see, for me, I hate that, because then I'm just on the edge of my seat for all the wrong reasons, knowing what's coming and not being able to do anything about it. And that might be a matter of subjective taste, but that's, for some people, that type of thing brought a lot of people into Madoka Magica. For people like me, that'd be like, okay, so I might have watched it before you said that. And I would have been surprised in the way that I was supposed to be surprised, in the way that the creators of that show had anticipated and intended to be, and because of that, now I could never watch that show. So, DJ, what do you think about all this?
Well, honestly, it sounds like I'm quite opposite the both of you, because I personally don't mind spoilers.
Mm-hmm.
There are some instances where I like to go in completely blind, but I am not going to force it. So my whole thing with entertainment is seeing the how. I could know something amazing happens, like I know I knew about the fate of a certain character going into season 4 of My Hero Academia, and I was more curious on how it was going to happen rather than it actually happening.
Okay, so you're attracted
the
to
surprise isn't important. It's how it happens. I like.
You're
the
more
journey
about the
at
journey.
end.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. Yeah, you're more like you value riding the lightning in compared to the punchline.
Well, with the Mendoka thing, what kind of showed us how it happened too. It was just a complete.
Well, you saw
I know.
You saw that point in that episode, though. You didn't see the episodes leading up to it, so that would be what I would be interested in. But I know about Madoka Magica, and I was never going to watch it in the first place.
And obviously, that show became a meme because it was stylized as Cardcaptor Sakura ripoff. It was marketed as a Cardcaptor Sakura ripoff, so it was drawing in a large crowd of people that were expecting cute and funny magical girls.
That was the maker's intention. He literally lied on media. He's known for making these dark animes, and he said, I'm making a light, fluffy one. None of my normal shit is in this. Come see it. So he literally lied to everybody about what it was about.
Which is genius.
That is immediately coming to my the image that is immediately coming to my mind when you painted that picture was guy has his breadcrumbs out. He's feeding the birds. The birds are on top of him. He gently holds his hand out to one. It hops into his hand, and then he breaks its neck and puts it into his pocket to eat for later.
Yeah.
Which from an artistic standpoint is genius. But oh my God, he traumatized so many people, and I don't know what to think about that.
And there have actually been a few examples that I've actually had to suffer through, and this also goes back to the whole trailer thing, where they will paint this thing as one big thing, but then it'll be completely different. For instance, are any of you guys familiar with the movie Whiskey Tango Foxtrot?
No.
I've heard of it, but I know nothing about it.
Okay, well, when me and my friend were watching the trailer for it, it seemed like a really funny comedy with a reporter who goes over to I think it was Afghanistan to document what was going on over there, and she's trying to prove herself and not be like a burden on the soldiers and whatnot, and a bunch of shenanigans where she's got a bright orange bag, so the soldiers are picking on her for that. And it's like, oh, they said it was military grade. Where are you gonna hide it? A frickin' sunset? And they had all these jokes in the trailer. We go to see it. Those were the only jokes in the entire film. The whole thing was like a depressing, wasn't even a thriller. It was just like a depressing, sobering movie. And we walked out really feeling bad because we're like, this is not what we wanted to have happen.
One of the trailers I thought worked because it did try to make you think something's happening in a different order was actually Star Trek Into Darkness. The trailer starts out with some scenes and then shows the Enterprise rising up from the water or something. And then near the end of... first you see scenes of it crashing and stuff. And then later in the trailer you see scenes of it coming up from the water, kind of making you think it gets blasted down, and later they fix it up and they come back to, kick whoever's ass took them down.
I like it when they do that. That's not so much subverting your expectations, sort of giving you a different order.
Yeah, they give a different order so you think that it's going to happen in a different way, and then they totally flip it upside down in the movie when in like the first 10 minutes it comes up out of the water and you're like, oh, whoa, okay. Something else is going on.
Something happened in that for me once, and it honestly disappointed me.
And what was that?
That was with the last Mission Impossible movie that had Superman in it, the actor who plays the new Superman in the DC movies.
Mm-hmm.
The trailers built it up as Tom Cruise's character has finally gone rogue against the government. And if you've seen the last few Mission Impossible movies, you'd understand why. And that's kind of what I wanted to see. I wanted to see this guy who's constantly getting screwed over by government bureaucrats going after them, when that is absolutely not what happens in the movie at all.
Yeah.
And I was informed that a lot of the Mission Impossible movies don't actually lead into them, and the ones that I saw were exceptions to those rules.
Interesting.
So I honestly, I haven't seen like the first 4 Mission Impossible movies. I've only seen 2 of them, and then that one.
So let me ask this. Well, finish your thought, DJ. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
Okay, so let me ask you guys this. Whenever a new season of Pony was coming out, especially season 8, we had like an entire season. I think the first half or the second half of the season spoiled for us. We always had episodes coming out of sequence or early in 3 and 5. So
Actually,
did you guys see those episodes when they leaked, or did you see these synopses when they leaked, and did that affect how you were thinking about things when you went to go watch the actual episodes? What do you think, Skan?
well, first off, that was one thing that I really thought was weird. People calling certain things, like they had a weird definition of spoilers.
Okay.
I do not think that an entire episode in its entirety is a spoiler. It's a leak, but it's not a spoiler. You got the full product. You get to see the full product. You're not seeing bits of the product that spoil what's going to go on, and then you go into it already knowing what's going on. It's a finished product. It's already there. It's not a spoiler. You have to still have some mysteries, even if they're already, you can guess them easily going into it.
I guess I can't argue with you there, but still the question stands: did you catch any of this stuff early, and did it affect what you thought about it going in?
Oh, I probably finished the entire series like a month before all you guys, and it didn't change my enjoyment of the episodes or anything at all.
All right.
I think you could consider an entire episode to be a spoiler for like the season if it's far enough ahead. Like
okay,
if
so
it's
you're
like,
talking about out of order.
Yeah, because that's
Okay.
what Brony was saying. Like if some of these episodes are being released out of order, and I'm like, I think you could consider it to be a spoiler if it was like, oh, we're only on episode 5, but oh look, we've got episode 13 being released. Whoopsie daisy.
Yeah, like we lucked out so hard in season 5 of Friendship is Magic, because that Halloween episode came out
On iTunes.
came out on iTunes in like early September, right? And in that
Yeah, that was
scene,
weird.
there was in that episode there was a scene of the Cutie Mark Crusaders TPing Rarity's house and then running away. They were all wearing full body costumes. Well, what happened 2 episodes prior in the official release? They got.
I remember you talking about this.
Yeah, they got their cutie marks. Could you imagine if for whatever reason they had not been wearing full body costumes in that episode, and we saw their cutie marks, and for a month and a half, it would have ruined everything. Everybody would have been fighting about whether or not it was an animation error and speculating. It would have been horrible. And then when the episode Crusaders of the Lost Mark did come out, nobody would have been happy with it because everybody would have had their headcanons ruined. Rather than just a few people that had their headcanons ruined by that episode.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
Oh man, that would have been like the series' biggest oof.
There would have been so much hate on iTunes for that.
Absolutely.
There already is so much hate on iTunes for that.
So much more hate.
Yeah.
They're like, wait, there's more salt on us right now? Oh, okay.
So, DJ, what do you think about that kind of thing?
Okay, for the season spoilers and whatnot. Honestly, I only knew of them through you guys in the Brony community, honestly, because never once did I ever see them. Only through hearing about it through Brony forums and Brony YouTube channels did I ever know there were leaks. Despite all the pony stuff I watched, it never showed up on my YouTube. I never saw anything for them. So, most of the time, I didn't even know they happened until long after they happened. So, the only time I noticed it was when we was getting close to finale time. And people were like, oh, the finale's out, the finale's out. I was like, Okay.
Mm.
Still gonna watch it on TV. They're making a primetime event. I'm not gonna waste their time.
Yeah, so Scan, Shutter Speed, what do you guys think?
I think those kind of things, if it's out of order, it's your choice if you watch it. Most of the time you can like he said, he didn't even see any of the spoilers. Most of the time you can avoid it.
Mhm.
It's very few times when people are super inconsiderate and have like 100 videos up on YouTube with the spoiler in the title with a friggin' thumbnail revealing
I
it
was just
all.
gonna say it's even worse when it's just in the thumbnail.
Right, so that,
Yeah.
but that's the ultimate form of my question there, is when you see things like that and then go forward and see the actual episode, is your perception colored in any way?
It has less of a emotional impact. It'll be less.
It definitely can take away from the shock value, but I think that has much more of an impact on something with with a much more complicated overarching story like Game of Thrones. Like, can you imagine if something like that almost mistake had happened in a Game of Thrones season, in a season of Game of Thrones? Holy crap!
Like
well,
a character
not-
death
it
that
might-
happened.
Well,
And
it
then
might
like
have.
they show a funeral episode before they actually show the character's death.
Right? Yeah, like something like that. That would have been blown people's minds.
Oof.
Well,
But
it
I
might
think
have warned them to abandon the series before it crashed and burned. Maybe they would escape the Titanic.
I think when you literally fire the guy who created the series is when you should start to be like, maybe we should wrap this up and not
And clean
continue
up
for
your
3
coffee
more
cups.
seasons.
Yeah.
But I think in something like MLP, which is much more episode to episode, it's not that big of a deal if like a spoiler comes out, unless it's like unless it's like part of the season finale or the premiere, because that can take away from a much larger story. But yeah.
Yeah, I guess the TV show thing, it doesn't hurt it too much. After all, I still enjoyed the episode where Spike gets his wings, but I did see an episode where he had wings before that one.
Mm.
I was like, oh, interesting, he got wings.
All right, so we've established that spoilers or having expectations going in is going to happen, and we've established how we sort of feel about that. So let's. Oh goodness, where did I want to go from here? Okay.
I think you wanted to expand on it to like stuff outside of media, I believe.
Yeah, so let's. You know what? We can run with that. I'm sorry, I'm such a train wreck, losing my train of thought constantly tonight. But yeah, we can go into that for a couple of minutes, and then let's turn to the audience questions. So, how does your perception of media affect how you go about the rest of your life? And here's another way to expand into that. At what point do we let our perceptions of an individual color how we perceive the rest of their work and the applicability of whatever message they might be trying to have? So Shutter Speed, how do you apply this to life, and where do you draw the line on separating your expectations of an artist to your expectations of their work? Go ahead.
Well, actually, I kind of wanted to more so focus on what you said about how do your perceptions of an individual person determine the way you view their work. And I've actually been getting some pretty hard lessons on this just in my life experience, because where I'm currently going to school right now, there's a lot of guys who have an amazing work ethic. They do really good stuff, and they always are very calm, cool, and collected. And my general perception of them is that these guys know exactly what they're doing. They're on top of the game. They get it. But then I actually sit down and ask them, "Hey, can you guys help me with this?" And they're just as confused with the material as I am. But they just keep their cool a lot better than I do. So especially when you're dealing with a person, there's definitely got to be a bit more of a, I hope I'm using this right, cognitive dissonance with the way you perceive them versus how you look at what they're doing. I guess.
Okay.
So I think that's more important, where you sort of step back from your expectations of the person and try and look at their work more objectively.
All right, that's pretty good. DJ, what do you think? How do you apply your expectations to life, and where do you draw the line between your expectations of an artist and your expectations of their work?
Okay, I still need to think on that first part, so I'll answer the second part first. I've had to kind of learn to separate artists from their work, because sometimes the people behind the work can just be terrible and have done some pretty scummy things, but their work can still be amazing. Kind of the more obvious one for me is a lot of the stuff going on to Funimation and Vic Mignogna, with how a lot of his fellow co-workers have kind of stabbed him in the back. Yet a lot of those voice actors that have done such a terrible thing to him have voiced some of my all-time favorite characters. Like one of the ones that stabbed him behind the back is the voice actor for All Might, Vegeta, and Piccolo in Dragon Ball and My Hero. And that kind of hurts.
That's Chris Sabat, right?
Yeah, Christopher Sabat. And that hurts, knowing that characters I love are played by someone who has done something horrible.
So what if a different dub were to come out? What if a different dub were to come out where they had a different cast and it was still just as good? Would you throw away Chris Sabat or whatever his name is?
No, I wouldn't, because I do love the work.
Okay.
I have the work in my memory. If that didn't exist, I wouldn't care as much. But it does exist. I've been exposed to it. It's what I know. And that's something I've actually picked up on in several years, is I've noticed when voice actors change and it never feels quite the same. Like if you go back to when the first English dub of Dragon Ball was the Ocean dub on Toonami, and those were some very different voice actors to what we know, but what we know now have been around a lot longer, that ones in the Ocean dub have kind of fallen to the wayside, but are still celebrated by many fans from those days who were older at the time.
I see.
Yeah, it's just kind of you just have to separate artists from their work, otherwise you do kind of ruin stuff for yourself.
All right.
And yourself is more important than them.
Okay. And in answering that, did you come up with an answer for the first half of the question of how you apply this to life? Because I think that your answer there might have also had a little bit of overlap.
It can apply to real life in that way. Is maybe just take care of yourself first, I suppose, is kind of where I'm getting with this. Your own tastes are what you're going to follow. So you just follow your gut is what I take out of it.
Well, and I can see that, but you also shouldn't close yourself off too much, because then what ends up happening is you create this echo chamber for yourself, and then you're no better than a Steven Universe fan.
But that's what you have friends for, too. You gotta have friends in your life.
Indeed.
Friendship is magic.
Yep. Skan, what do you think about all this?
It depends from person to person, and it depends on what if my problem with the person shows through in their work. A lot of people can keep their friggin' work separate from whatever problem I have with them, so I have no problem with it. But when it bleeds through and they start like preaching at me or something in their media, then it's like, okay, let's turn this off and go somewhere else where it's not some weirdo whack.
Current
also, yeah. Yeah, I can't. I want a fan to redo the episode where he got all the extra lives and instead have him save the day in a glorious death.
All right.
It was fine.
I want Arya Stark to have died in episode 3 of season 8 because that would have given Jon Snow motivation to fight the Night King all the harder.
I want the
very salty about
adaptation
that
to
one in
stay.
particular.
I want the adaptation to stay faithful to the source material, but
By
they
that logic, it should have been
Yeah.
in season 4.
yeah, exactly, and and they diverged a long time ago.
Sorry, I was just laughing at Heather in the chat.
Yep, I see it as well. So if nobody has anything else to say, now would be the time to get into the audience participation section. So we've gotten a couple of decent questions and comments throughout, but if anybody else has anything they want to ask myself or anybody in the stream, now's the time to do it. So first up, we got Rusty Helm 93 asking me, if I had the choice, do I spoil myself to an ending that I think is going to be bad, or do I still go in blind and hate it? And then he said, case in point, Game of Thrones. Well, I didn't watch Game of Thrones. Well, actually, no, I watched the first 2 seasons of Game of Thrones, and I can't say I enjoyed it. So, if it's something where I haven't seen the majority of it, or I just don't care about the source material at all, go ahead and talk to me about it. I don't care. If it's something that I'm a fan of, then I'm going to try to stomach out. Like I was really expecting, I had to stomach out Magical Mystery Cure, and I had to, and I was of course going to stomach out, the last 3 episodes of Friendship is Magic as a whole. I didn't know what was going to happen, so I didn't want to know what was going to happen, but I was still interested in seeing it. But if it's something like Game of Thrones, I don't care. If it's something like let's say, It, and somebody asked me if I was going to go see It, and I said no. Go ahead and tell me what happens. So that it's a case by case thing for me. So let's turn that question to you guys though. Do you spoil a bad ending for yourself, or do you go in blind and try to tough it out and be like me? Skan, what do you think?
If something's spoiled that it's got a truly crap ending or something, I'll then only see the rest of it if I can find a way to see it free or something, but I'll no longer actively look for the rest of the series. I'm not going to put in effort or money into crap, but if it's there, I'll just check it out to make sure it was crap.
All right, DJ?
I typically spoil myself on a lot of stuff, so like I said, I'm more into the how anyway, so I kind of want to know where the thing is going.
Well, you must have loved
before I jump into it.
You must have loved Breaking Bad then, because they literally start at the end and then just take you from the beginning all the way back up to that point.
Was never interested in that show either.
Well, that's exactly what they did. Shutter Speed, what do you think?
It depends on whether or not I care about the source material. If I do care about the source material, then I don't want it to be spoiled because I would much rather go into it blind from that perspective. Well, as blind as possible, and then be disappointed rather than have someone else say that it's going to be disappointed, and then my entire perception of it is now going to be, oh, my mood is now sour, I'm probably not going to enjoy this, and then it makes the whole viewing experience less comfortable. It removes the shock of me finding out that it's bad, but then it also removes it also dulls any other enjoyment I might have had throughout that spoiled episode or ending or whatever.
All
But if
right.
it's something I don't really care about, then I guess, yeah, I wouldn't mind a spoiler or two, because if it's just going to be bad, then I won't put my time into watching it then.
All right.
Actually, that makes me want to bring up something.
Yeah, go for it.
It's kind of a criticism I have with the Last Jedi specifically, because when that movie came out, I spoiled myself on what was going to happen at the end, because I had seen a news article and was like, "Oh, that's going to happen? Okay, how?" And going through the movie, I still enjoyed it the first time around. However, what I take issue with is that shock value specifically is if the shock value only works once, then it wasn't worth it. If you can still enjoy something without the shocking surprise, that's when something's really good. But if you need that shocking surprise to have enjoyed it, it means the work wasn't necessarily all that good in the first place.
Well, that also means that the shocking surprise, well, like you said, wasn't that good, but it was not that good for different reasons. Like, if the shock value really only works once, then what happened was, well, I should say this, good shock value, a good plot twist, is something that you can go back and watch the movie again or read the book again and see all the little parts that you thought were nothing in the moment of when you first watch it, but they were adding up and foreshadowing to what was to come. So that's my opinion there. Let's move on here. Let me see. I'm going to try to pronounce this. Asakia or Acacia Cheetah Productions has a question for DJ. Are there any other popular cartoons that you see people talk about that you have no interest in?
Several.
Name them.
Many ones that would get me a lot of hate for saying it, but I won't say them anywhere.
Do it.
Miraculous Ladybug.
Miraculous Ladybug.
Ruby.
There's one. Ruby. Yeah, I don't blame you there. That show sucks. What's next?
The
haven't
first
heard
two
of
seasons
Ruby.
are so much fun.
Loud
but then
House.
it down slope.
Archer. Bob's Burgers.
Archer is halfway decent, I think.
She-Ra. Carmen Sandiego.
Guess where I am.
The new Harley Quinn show. Especially that one. I have definitely no interest after seeing that one. After seeing a certain clip of that.
Alrighty then. What was the
I think
clip?
they've killed that. I hear Birds of Prey is gonna friggin' flop hard.
It better flop hard. It looks ugly.
So what was the clip then?
It was a clip of how they were portraying Robin, who in that one is Damian Wayne, and despite a lot of people hating him, I actually like Damian as Robin. And they gave him this super high-pitched, whiny 4-year-old voice when he's like 10.
Oh, jeez.
Ooh.
They made him the nuisance.
Wait, wasn't he Nightwing? Isn't he Nightwing in the Harley Quinn thing?
No, that's Grayson.
Oh, okay.
Damian Wayne's the Robin who has a sword.
Okay.
Well, let's pass that question along then. Scan. Popular TV shows that you're never going to watch.
Well, bringing up one he said, I also semi-started Archer but couldn't get through it.
Any particular reason?
I haven't. It just wasn't catching me. I was like, no. And then, what was it? I haven't even heard of that one. He said June or something.
June?
Or he said like a one-word Ruby or something. And I haven't even heard of that.
You haven't heard of Ruby?
Okay. No.
Okay.
RWBY?
You only need to watch the first two seasons. Everything else is crap.
WBY?
Yeah.
It's an anime.
Anime.
Okay, I guess.
Yes,
It's a big air quotes anime. If Ruby is an anime, then so is Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Okay, I always thought that. I never knew they pronounced it Ruby. I always thought since it was just letters, they pronounced it RWBY.
Oh my god, thank you. I'm not the only one who did that.
Yeah.
I did that for the longest time.
I'm like, it doesn't say anything. It's just letters. It's one of those spell it out.
All I know is the main character's name is Ruby, too.
Yeah, that always drove me nuts back in the early 2000s, and I was watching the show called Code Lyoko, but Lyoko was spelled as an acronym, and I'm like, what does LYOKO stand for? And they never said it. They never clarified.
That was still a good show.
But that intro, though.
Oh my god, that's the best intro song to ever. Like, that one and Wild Challenger from Bobobo are just amazing. I love those songs.
Oh, you like Bobobo, Brian?
I do not like Bobobo. I like Wild Challenger by Jindo. Let's make that very clear.
I will
that series is on
challenge you a
Blu-ray
bit
now.
and say that the best intro from my childhood was the intro for Oban Star Racers.
Never heard of that
I
show.
will die by that. Just look it up, Oban Star Racers, because it's so it's a very good show, but it's so unknown that the entire series is up on YouTube right now.
Interesting.
Just type in Oban Star Racers. There'll be a playlist of 26 episodes, which is the entire series. And the intro for the English version is just fire. It is awesome. I love it.
I have no idea why, because it's completely unrelated to anything, but when you said that the entire series was up on YouTube, it reminded me of this show that Heather and I watched early on into our friendship. It was, and I forgot what it was called, but it was these two android twins that sometimes acted with romantic subtones. It was weird, but they were fighting dinosaurs, and they would fuse into each other to become this character called Gemini. And one of them was named Jim, and the other was named Gem. And then to fuse, they would cross their forearms and go. And one would go Jim, and the other would go Gem, and then they would go Gemini, and then they would like fuse into some super powerful thing that could take on the dinosaurs. And I know Heather's lurking the chat. If Heather hears this and remembers the name of that show, please put it in the chat so everybody can go watch that show. It's only 5 episodes long. Anyway, next question. Paladin Pony T wants to know if we've ever had a video game spoiled for us, or is it too difficult to spoil video games?
It's not difficult to spoil video games at all, if you're going in for the story.
Yeah.
If it is a very heavy story-intensive game, then yeah, spoilers could have a huge impact on the enjoyment for that.
I mean, that's one of the times I avoided spoilers was playing Kingdom Hearts 3. I wanted to know all that just by playing the game.
A part of me wants to say that wouldn't any like actual spoilers, couldn't they have just gotten away with it? Like, no, it's actually a hidden detail in the plot of the story, and then the fans, because it's so freaking convoluted, they would have bought that.
Well, the cat certainly agrees.
Yeah.
That cat sounds an awful lot like a baby.
Yeah, he wants in.
All right,
That's
so
cool.
next question here, Melissa Good.
Before you go on, Brony, I had to look it up real quick. The Lyoko as an acronym thing was actually a broadcasting error. Because if you actually look up the series, it's not listed as an acronym.
Really?
Yeah. Even just going to the Wikipedia page, it's just code Lyoko. There's no periods or nothing. It's not an acronym.
Oh, shoot! You guys were saying it was an acronym. No, okay, never mind. I thought for some reason
Well, that's what
I thought you
Brony
guys
mistaked it as.
Okay, no, for some reason I thought you said the word adjective instead of just being in the name of the place. I don't know why I made that mistake, but it happened.
Well, yeah, that was a broadcasting error on Cartoon Network's part.
That's all right. That clears up a lot. Then I can put that that question to rest. Oh, geez, Cartoon Network. When are you ever going to get it right? Melissa Good has a question, it's a half question, half a comment. And Melissa says, "I heard there was going to be a season 10 of Friendship is Magic that's going to be focused around Zecora. Spoiler warning. Okay, now everybody's perceptions of season 10 are colored, and it's going to be season 1 all over again, where we all think the presence of Zecora is racist on the show's part. But is she the only one that's aware of this? So what did anybody else know about this?
I do know of what
supposedly there's a
synopsis is.
I don't think I may even have one already. I haven't paid attention to my pickups, but isn't the last season of MLP going to be in comics?
Yeah.
Yes, it is in comic book form. I believe it's supposed to start coming out in April.
Okay, so I haven't picked it up yet. I'm kind of behind on my comics. I just go.
I'm behind on the comics too. I really got to
from-
get around to fixing that.
From what I've
I
seen,
have a
it's going to be
stack of them that I've had in my room for the past like 2 years, but I haven't touched them in.
DJ, what were you saying?
From what I understand, it's going to be a direct continuation from the main. So it's going to be like it's going to be like a cutoff where it goes into season 10.
All right.
So they're probably going to finish off like some arc or something. I'm not caught up with the comics. I just know they're keeping the numbering. So if you're following the comics, it's going to lead right into season 10 as a separate title you need to pick up. And I did see the synopsis for it. It does sound very interesting in what we have been asking for.
Alrighty then, and our last question. Heather wants to know how the stream is going. So, did we have fun, gentlemen?
I think we've had some good talks.
Yeah, it wasn't nearly as objective or as I had thought it was going to be, but that's not a bad thing. You know, we learned some stuff tonight.
That we did.
All right. So I think that's a good place to wrap it up then, unless somebody else has something they want to say before I do so. Yes? No?
Watch Oban Star Racer.
All right. Watch Oban Star Racer. That's where we're going to end it. So
Look it up on YouTube.
Yeah.
I'm done. Yeah.
All right. So thanks to, thank you, Skan, DJ, Shutterspeed for coming out. Thank you, Shutterspeed, for suggesting the topic. It was a great topic. Thanks to everybody who in the chat who came and watched. We had 23 viewers tonight, which is pretty good. If you would like to be on this show, I'd certainly love to have you. I just need you to join up on the Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Send your topic suggestions to me at any time, anywhere. Email, Twitter, Tumblr, all my contact information is there in the description. Be sure to check out these guys' works in the description as well. Thanks to my patrons and my supporters for making these things possible, especially those guys up at the $10 and up tier. These guys are Autoknight, Sodden, Senko, Jennan, Kellogg, Kyle Christensen, our friend right here, DJ Skywalker, and the Equestrian City Heroverse series. I hope you all have a great night. If you want more live streams with me, we do Chaos and Crocheting with Princess Heather Blossom on Saturdays in the evenings, and I'm reading the chat and hanging out. And next week we're doing Friday Night Fights on Friday night. Same time, same place. You all have a great night. Say goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Good night, everybody.
See